Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. And today we're going to have the joint meeting of the Cotati City Council and a successor agency to the former Cotati Community Redevelopment Agency. So we're going to start. First of all, we do have some members that are out of the area that are participating in the meeting. One person? Okay. So Vice Mayor Harvey was participating via teleconference, and her information is on the agenda. So we're going to start with the call to order. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Savage.
Here.
Councilmember Sparks.
Here.
Vice Mayor Harvey.
Oops.
Did you get me?
Now we do, yes.
Okay, sorry, some spam is calling me.
And Mayor Lemus.
Here.
We'll show Councilmember Ford is absent. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next item we have is approval of minutes and notice of waiving of reading of all resolutions and ordinances introduced and are adopted under this agenda. So we have the minutes from the regular meeting of June 23rd. First of all, is there any corrections or questions from the City Council? No? Okay. So we'll go to public comment on that. And we'll go to online first.
Thank you, Mayor Lemus. Speaking to our Zoom attendees, if you'd like to make a public comment on this item, please use the raise hand icon. Seeing no hands on Zoom.
Okay. So now in the room, we'll see if is there anyone in the room that has public comment on the minutes from June 23rd, 2026? Okay, so we'll bring it back to City Council for any further comments or motion.
I move to approve the minutes.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Since we have a roll call, we need to have roll call because we have somebody that's not in the room. So can we have a roll call vote?
Councilmember Savage.
Yes.
Councilmember Sparks.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Harvey.
Yes,
Mayor Lemus.
Yes. Okay, that passes. Thank you. The next item is agenda review. Is there any changes to the agenda?
Thank you, Mayor. No proposed changes tonight.
Okay, thank you. The next item is citizen business and public comment for consent calendar items. Any member of the public wishing to speak to the council on any item listed on the consent calendar or any matter not listed on the agenda that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council may do so at this time. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the council is not allowed to consider issues or take action on any item not listed on the agenda. Pursuant to City Council Policy 2025-03, comments of any member of the public are normally restricted to a total of 3 minutes in length per person for matters not on the agenda, and a total of 3 minutes per person in length for any and all items on the consent calendar. The mayor may extend the time limit for a reasonable time where disability accommodation has been requested. To facilitate public comment, the timer indicator lights will display yellow when there are 30 seconds remaining and red when time has expired. So we'll start with online.
Thank you, Mayor Lemus. Once again, speaking to our Zoom attendees, if you'd like to make a public comment for citizens' business or the consent calendar, please use the raise hand icon. There are no hands on Zoom.
Okay, and so now we'll go into the room. If there's anyone in the room that wants to make a comment on citizen business or consent calendar items, if you can please raise your hand and come to the front. Okay, we'll start with the person with the hat on. If you want to come forward. And then state your name and, or you have a group, okay? You can go, I'll go ahead.
My name is Fred Patucha. I'm wearing two hats. I'm the president of Veterans for Peace for Sonoma County and also a member of the Santa Rosa East-West Rotary Club. Several years ago, we decided a joint effort of Rotary and Veterans for Peace with the goal of dedicating a peace pole with the phrase, "May peace prevail on earth," on the campus of every school in Sonoma County. Thus far, we have dedicated 87 peace poles and hope to reach 100 in this fall semester. Locally, we've done it at Sonoma State University, also at the Doubletree Hotel, and in every school in the Cotati-Rohnert Park School District. George Malcolmus of the Rotary Club is unable to be here, but he has sent some assistants who make her own comments. There was no cost to the city to have a Peace Bowl dedicated. The physical installation is handled by Rotary and Veterans for Peace. And all we are asking is for your blessing and support and direction on which department or individual at the city we should coordinate with in selecting the exact site and the installation of it. Thank you for your attention, and we hope we will receive your support. Alice?
Good evening.
Okay.
This is a sample.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then this is a separate comment, public comment? Can we restart the
Yeah,
clock?
this is just
Okay.
to, I'm with the Rancho Cotati Rotary Club, past president, and our president was not able to make it, and this is just to let you know that we do corroborate with the city of Cotati with projects. And again, our Rotary Club will be funding together with the veterans. So hopefully, all we need is for you to give us a space and somebody to work with, and we'll continue working with you, corroborate. And many of you don't know the Rotary Club. We had a big Cinco de Mayo project going on this the first time. So that's the same club that will be working with you to do a peaceful in the city of Cotati. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, anyone else in the room that wants to make a public comment on citizen business and consent calendar items? Go ahead and come forward and then state your name and make your comment.
Hello, my name is Cheryl Harrington. I wanted to talk about Cotati Park. We have kids that are coming in there with electric bikes and motorcycles and electric riders and stuff. They're flying in there, and they're going right past the children.
Can you bring the microphone down a little bit for you? Thank you.
Thank you. They're flying in there like you cannot believe, and all the little children are over there playing in the playground, and it's terrifying to watch. They're not slowing down. They're just flying in there and going out the back way and then going back around and coming back in. It's very dangerous. So that needs to be taken care of. The trash pickup at the Cotati Park, by the way, I go there 7:30 in the morning, 12 in the afternoon, and 5. That's why I know all this. My little doggy needs walking. The trash pickup, when they pick up the trash cans, they drop the trash. They don't pick it up, and it leaves a mess in the park. And I just wanted you to be aware of that. There's after parties in the park at the mezzanine, the people are leaving all kinds of junk around. They're not picking up themselves. It's a big mess. My girlfriend and I walk around and pick up the park all the time, and I've got a broken back. So there's a lady that's sleeping in the bathroom at night. She goes in there at 8 o'clock, and I've seen her go in there, and I'm at the park at 7:30, and she comes out at 8 in the morning, and that needs to be addressed because people are trying to go to the bathroom in the bath. There's only one bathroom left after they are there, after she locks herself in. And I'd like to see a stoplight on Madrone Avenue and Sebastopol Road. I live on the corner there. I work at Pacific Mini Storage. That's my business. And the traffic there is horrible. It's flying by at 7:30 in the morning. They're like doing 50 miles an hour. And it's really scary when school starts down there. We have a school down there on Madrone, and it's very scary when the school starts because the people are having the children in the car and they're trying to cross traffic. And, you know, they've almost been hit several times over there. So it's pretty dangerous intersection. And either the policemen need to get out there and start monitoring the traffic speed, or we need a light out there. And that's all I wanted to say. And I appreciate your business. I love Cotati. I have lived in 41 states. My husband was in the military. And Cotati is the best place I've ever lived in my entire life, and I love it. But thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else in the room would like to make a comment? And this is for citizen business and the consent calendar items? Yes, please come forward.
live on Lincoln Avenue. I emailed this video to a member of the council, and they couldn't see it. I live right next to Oliver's, the concrete wall, and I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, if you can send it to us and give your public comment.
I tried, and he couldn't read it, so that's why I'm here.
Okay, maybe afterwards, we can have some staff meet with you, and then they can get it directly from you. That
Okay.
probably would be the best for us, probably. Did you want, if you want to talk and describe it during your time, let us know what it is, and then afterwards.
There's a concrete wall that separates us from Oliver's. The trees hang over the concrete wall.
I'm sorry, yeah, microphone, so we can hear.
The
Thank you.
trees hang over the concrete wall all the way across our walkway to Lincoln Avenue. And at the very end of the concrete wall to Lincoln Avenue, the wall goes way down, and it's about this tall. And in there, there's got to be 2 feet of dried leaves and debris, and people dump their trash in there. I come along with my grabbers and pick the trash out because I want to discourage that. But if somebody throws a lit cigarette butt in there, the whole place is going to catch on fire. The trees that are right next to my condo are going to burn. Oliver's has to clean that out regularly, down to the dirt, so that we're not in danger of fire.
Okay, thank you. And then we'll have staff after come over and get the information from you. Thank you. Is there anyone else? Anyone else in the room that would like to make public comment on citizen business and consent calendar items? Okay, we'll bring it back to the council. As far as the consent calendar, any comments or questions from, yes?
I'd like to pull item 5A, the resolution authorizing the California Highway Patrol grant.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions or comments on consent calendar item? Okay. So why don't we'll take a vote on items 5B, C, and D, and then we'll come back and ask for a staff discussion on 5A.
Do you need
Yes.
I move to approve consent calendar items 5B, 5C, and 5D.
Second.
Okay, we'll do a roll call.
Second?
Okay. We got John as a second. Thank you, Susan. And we'll do a roll call vote, please.
That's fine.
Councilmember Savage,
Yes.
Councilmember Sparks,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Harvey,
Yes.
Mayor Lemus.
Yes. Okay, thank you. So now we will go ahead and take 5A, the resolution authorizing California Highway Patrol grant. And who's on staff is taking that one?
We'll have the chief give the presentation on that, Mayor.
Yeah, so can you hear me okay? Okay. Real quick, this is a grant. This is a grant that we were actually awarded last year for similar equipment and training, and for personnel costs associated with that training. It's nice because it does do overtime. A lot of grants don't do a lot of the personnel costs, but this is something that's nice for us. This year, we asked for and have preliminarily been granted Sotoxa drug testing device, which is basically, it's like what some people know as a PAS device, which is for a preliminary alcohol screening test in the field for an officer. This is actually the drug version of it, so not alcohol, but related to other drugs to include methamphetamine, opiates, fentanyl, et cetera. It also
I'm sorry, Chief, could you hold the microphone a little
Oh,
closer?
excuse me, I'm sorry. Yeah. It also includes personnel costs associated with training and travel, specifically related to the main two things are saturation DUI events, patrols in our city, and also related to training for field sobriety test training. And so, and I think there's even an instructor training in that one as well. And lastly, there's a traffic unit command vehicle associated with that for DUI enforcement, which is good for our fleet. And obviously, in fact, I was just at a MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving event the other day. 3 of our officers were awarded top honors for the DUI enforcement that they have done. One officer, it's the same officer actually last year who had 148 arrests for DUI, and this last year he had over 102, I think it was, DUI arrests. So obviously DUI and safety is important to us, and this is a critical grant that at least over the last now 2 years that we've been lucky enough to have the funds for these sorts of things. So that's it in a nutshell. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yes, questions of the council?
Thank you. The question I had was related to the Sotoxa device. I had a few, I think everything else in the grant I'm super supportive of. Just had a question about that device. I was doing a little bit of looking into it, and it seems to have a lot of false positives and a lot of false negatives, and it also can't really detect fentanyl. It has some weaknesses. So generally, I just want to know, like, what kind of training are the officers going to receive in terms of what to make of what they're seeing on that device? Because sometimes it will show a certain intoxicant, which a blood test shows is not actually in the person's system, and it's not terribly inaccurate, but it's inaccurate enough that in our pack of 25 that we're getting, there's going to be some mistakes in there. So how are the officers going to be trained to interpret what they're seeing, and how's that really, I just want to feel comfortable with how that's actually going to be used in the field.
Sure, absolutely. So there'll be in-house training associated with that. We have one already that we do use and have had success with that. Like with any, it's a preliminary screening device, so that's important to call it that, right? It's preliminary in the sense that it's in the field. It doesn't relieve the officers of having to do their proper investigation in the field with, for example, their field sobriety test. That's why the FST, the field sobriety test training, is so important, that all of our officers have that training. During that training that they have, that they address PAS devices, the preliminary alcohol screening devices. They also address the Sotoxa and various other, forms of determining sobriety or levels of sobriety associated with either drug use, polydrug use, and alcohol, or alcohol as well. So they'll have that ecosystem of training associated with that device. Also, like I said, remembering that this is not a you don't just arrest based on that device. So I don't want people to get the impression that's the case, right? It is a piece of information that potentially could lead the officer to further investigative follow-up, to conduct field sobriety tests, et cetera, that sort of thing. So if they would normally not bring this device out if they didn't otherwise think that there was at least some suspicion, reasonable suspicion from a lawful term, that the person was potentially under the influence of some sort of substance, right? We see this more and more just because we're seeing more drug deuces, DUIs that are drug related. And so when they'll use a preliminary alcohol screening device and they'll blow on that and it'll be zeros, but the person is clearly impaired, and so they have to go through the extra steps that I mentioned before. And some of that also is about medical questions that they ask and making sure that someone's not suffering from some sort of medical issue or a diabetic issue or those sorts of things. So we do run into those as well. So this doesn't, again, relieve the officer of any of those, his or her obligations to go through a full investigation during, say, for example, a traffic stop in this regard.
Thank you. And I wasn't aware that we had those devices in use already, so that's good information. The fact that we're using field sobriety tests as a backup kind of raises a little bit of concern with me, just because I know that people with disabilities, and often there are folks who struggle to pass a field sobriety test even when they're fully sober. So I'm assuming we have really good training on all of that as well.
Yeah, and just to add to that, there's basically a list of questions associated with medical concerns or do you have any disabilities? What are they? Those sorts of things when you're doing those field sobriety tests. So there's a whole litany of questions that the officers have to ask, and that obviously their own observations. And just at the very end of the day, they all have body-worn cameras on. So everything that they're doing is shown on the body-worn camera. So if there's anything that otherwise that the person would, if they had some sort of disability or had some sort of issue, then that would be brought up during the course of that investigation and be documented in the camera as well as evidence, both, for the investigation and also potentially in favor of the other person who was either had some sort of disability or had some sort of issue.
Thank you. Those are my questions.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, now, since we pull it off, do we go to public comment again? Okay, let's go to public comment online first. And this is on the resolution authorizing California Highway Patrol grant.
Thank you, Mayor Lemus. Zoom attendees, please use the raise hand icon if you'd like to make a public comment on this item, item 5A. Seeing no hands on Zoom.
Is there anyone in the room who would like to make a comment on this item? Okay, seeing no one, we'll come back to council. Any further comments or questions or motion?
Just have a comment. I'm going to support this, this grant, but I personally would be my preference that at this point in time, we didn't use these devices because I think that the marketing has gotten a little bit ahead of the scientific capabilities that they have. There's just a little too much false positives, false negatives for me to be comfortable with their use, but.
I think that there's always different types of tests, being developed. I mean, I heard recently that there's a new kind of fentanyl, which is like a rhino kind of tranquilizer that's being used out there right now, coming from the East Coast to the West Coast. So I think that they're always kind of changing and evolving, so it's something to kind of keep looking at. But it is like the chief said, preliminary, because there's other things that they do to also test, and not just, that's just one indicator, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it can be harmful both ways. It can throw up false positive when somebody doesn't have anything in their system, which is a problem. But it can also show a negative, which can reassure an officer that the person is
right,
not intoxicated when they actually are. So, I'm just
Yes.
I'd rather leave it to the judgment and looking at all the facts, and I think it introduces too much confusion, but that's just my opinion.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Okay. Can we get a motion from someone on this item?
I make a motion that we adopt a resolution authorizing California Highway Grant, Patrol Grant.
A second?
Second.
Okay. Okay, Susan, second. And can we get a roll call on that?
Councilmember Savage,
Yes.
Councilmember Sparks,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Harvey,
Yes.
Mayor Lemus.
Yes, thank you. That passes. And the next item that we have is direction on future agenda items. Does anyone here on the council have anything they would like to bring forward for future agenda item? Okay, Councilmember Sparks?
Thank you. I spoke with the city manager about this week. There's been a lot of news lately about Flock and a lot of cities pulling their contracts and ending their relationships with Flock. And we thought, speaking with the city manager, we thought it might be a good idea to refer to the Police Advisory Committee to investigate how much utility we've gotten out of the Flock cameras, how many crimes have been solved. This is something that we had asked for before, and we just didn't quite have enough data yet. So I think our contract is up for renewal next year. There's a lot of time between now and when the contract would come up. So I would propose adding to the agenda an item to discuss referring this issue to the Citizens Police Advisory Commission to look into what, how the Flock cameras have worked and make a recommendation on whether or not to renew the contract.
I had the same conversation with city manager on that. So I think we're aligned on making sure we also talk the same thing, having the police commission look at this as well. Anyone else? Any other items? Another item I wanted to also, I know was a public comment and we don't take action now, but just the peace poll that was discussed. I know I've kind of heard from Rotary Club, they've contacted and reached out to me. So that's something that we can, go ahead.
On that one, I would just suggest referral to me and then I can work with them on some of the details, and before anything gets installed, I can come back.
Refer them to contact you. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll do that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any other comments or anything? Okay. All right, thank you. So we're going to the next item, which is a regular agenda. And the first item we have is an amendment to the Sonoma County Waste Management Authority Joint Powers Agreement for development of the new household hazardous waste facility, and amendment to the central disposal site and former landfill settlement agreement. Do we have a report on that? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, Council. As you all know, the city is a member of the Sonoma County Waste Management Agency, which is a JPA more commonly known to all of us as Zero Waste Sonoma. And Vice Mayor Harvey is our rep on this board. And I'll also point out that we have some guests here tonight that will help, that can help with any questions that might come up afterwards. We have Leslie with Zero Waste Sonoma, right there, back there in the back, and also Glenn next to her, who's with Sonoma County Public Infrastructure, who specializes in landfill issues and these kind of solid waste issues. So the existing household hazardous waste is at Central Landfill, but there's been a longstanding concern that it doesn't serve the North County well. So Zero Waste Sonoma has, the board there has for, I think for quite a long time, had a goal of opening up a new household hazardous waste facility that would better serve the North County region. And also, of course, just make it easier to get that household hazardous waste out of the waste stream, especially coming from the North County for a variety of reasons. So that's what sort of set the ball in motion, so to speak. And then another sort of related thing that it's covered in the staff report, but I'll just summarize it here quickly, is in 2015, the county, Sonoma County, was looking to divest itself from the Central Landfill, which is a landfill right here on Meacham Road. It's the operational landfill here in Sonoma County. And as part of that, basically, there's the operating landfill, and there's also some other landfills which are labeled former rural landfills and former urban landfills. There are different other closed landfills that are around the county that have been in use at various points in the past. But with respect to the divestiture from the central landfill, the county ultimately selected Republic to take over operations and liability for the central landfill. So that's who operates the landfill now. They've been operating it since effectively 2015. This divestiture and transfer of operations also resulted in various other agreements around the same time, or at the same time, actually. So there was also a waste delivery agreement, which basically committed a lot of the jurisdictions to waste delivery to keep the central landfill open for a 25-year period of time. There's also this landfill settlement agreement, which is part of this action tonight, which basically tried to settle the final disposition of the various categories of disposal sites that are around the county. So there's as I said earlier, a variety of what they're called former rural landfills. There's also the former urban landfills, and then there's central disposal site, or the central landfill. And so at the time Republic took over the landfill, the central landfill, Republic provided a guarantee as part of the assumption of liability. They provided a guarantee, both the local Republic entity and also the parent company Republic provided a guarantee against, to make sure they have the closure and post-closure requirements in place. That's also backstopped by a bond, so that even if the company's dissolved, there's a bond that would backstop the cost of closure and post-closure. And when that happened, the county already had some funds, some closure and post-closure funds, and that moved into a county contingent liability fund. And there was also some of the former urban landfills were a former landfill up at the airport by the Sonoma County Airport, a former landfill near Healdsburg, and a former landfill near the town of Sonoma. So those three are the former urban landfills. They all had some funding associated with closure, post-closure, and those funds collectively So the central disposal site plus these former urban landfills, those funds collectively made up this county contingent liability fund. So separate from that, there's also a city's contingent liability fund, which we're not talking about tonight, but Cotati and all the other committed cities have funds set aside in that fund as well. So that's a if there was some series of circumstances where Republic defaulted, the bonds defaulted. So Republic locally, Republic corporate, and the bonds, all three of those defaulted. And the county's contingent liability fund didn't have adequate funding in it. Then the cities have a sort of a separate contingent liability fund for the central landfill. There's also the former urban landfills, which the county also covers as a primary funding source for anything that might happen there. We're not, they've been closed for quite a while, but if anything were to happen there, the county contingent liability fund also covers that. And the city's contingent liabilities funds could cover those as a secondary rollover funding source. So, the county contingent liability fund right now has, or at least I think it was as of last year, had a little north of $21 million in it. And it's the county contingent liability fund that we're talking about in terms of the two agreement thing that we're talking about tonight. So one half of it is the JPA with Zero Waste Sonoma, with the Waste Management Authority. So half of it is that. They're the agency receiving the money because they don't have the kind of capital money to be able to build a household hazardous waste facility. They have operational money as part of the tip fees, part of the disposal fees, but they don't have capital money. So they were seeking capital money to build this HHW facility. On the other side of that same coin is the county contingent liability fund, which I mentioned has $21 million in it. And there's no particular use for it right now. It's just a reserve fund that's sitting there that is highly unlikely to ever be used. So rather than Zero Waste Sonoma going to public markets to borrow the money to fund the household hazardous waste construction, which would be probably 7% ish in terms of an interest rate, in conversations with the county said, hey, we have a reserve fund here and we can do essentially what's a kind of intergovernmental loan at a lower rate, more akin to the rate that their investment return that they get, which is around 4%. So they get a lower rate, potentially more flexible terms. But in order for them to loan the money out of the landfill settlement sort of fund, they need an amendment to that fund. So what's before you tonight is two amendments. One for the JPA to allow them to borrow money basically in this manner, and the other from the landfill settlement fund, which allows them to loan the money to the waste agency for this solid waste purpose. So that is it at a high level. The amount of money that's talking about, at least currently, there is a draft agreement in there, a draft loan agreement that's in the packet. It's not for council action, but just for informational reasons. They're looking at about $16 million to build the HHW facility in North County. And it would be paid over 24 years. So I think that's it, but I'd be happy to answer any questions. As I mentioned, both Leslie and Glenn are here as well, if there's other questions that you might have that they have more expertise in.
Okay, thank you. Was there any questions from council? Questions? Okay. Let's go to public comment. We're going to online first.
Thank you, Mayor Lemus. Once again, Zoom attendees, please use the raise hand icon if you'd like to make a comment on this item. Seeing no hands on Zoom.
Okay, so we'll go bring it to the room. Is there anyone in the room who would like to make a public comment? Okay, come forward. And this is for the current item, the household hazardous waste.
Yes. I haven't followed this issue at all, but I'm just wondering, if it's got to the point where there's any feedback from local residents in any of the areas affected, and about things like environmental projections for new landfills in new areas. Or maybe I've misunderstood, but those are the questions that come up in my head when I'm listening. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to make a public comment? Okay, so seeing that, I'll bring it back to council. I believe the facility is in the Windsor area, right? It's not here. And so they have been taking public comment and workshops there.
Yeah, Zero Waste Sonoma they're in the finishing the design process right now. And it's my understanding, so it's not a landfill, by the way, it's just like basically a transfer station where the waste gets collected and then transferred out to be properly disposed of. But in terms of like the building, the construction of that facility, there's, I believe there's been public comment. I mean, Leslie can talk more about that.
Well, I wonder if,
She's-
if Leslie or, and the other person might be able to want to share a little bit about that. Thank you.
Good evening, Council. Yes, we will be going through a public process. Right now, we're at 80% design, so we just went out for an RFP for a construction manager at risk, and so they're going to help us to the finish line, and then we'll go through permitting and environmental impacts.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So any other comments from council?
Well, I just,
Sylvia?
Yes. Yes, go ahead, Vice Mayor.
I just want to say that Leslie was being very kind. There has been a lot of work done because it is a household hazardous facility. I mean, the amount of things that have to be done inside the building to make sure things are done properly, and ventilation and drainage, and an incredible amount of work that has been done to make sure that it is environmentally safe, in particular because it is household hazardous waste. So a lot of care has been done to make sure that the facility is state of the art, and that we take the right care of the area. So I just wanted to add that a lot of work has been done, and I think that if the council would like at some point in time, when it gets closer, I think that Leslie would be willing to come and do a presentation on the new facility.
Okay, thank you. That would be good. And let's go to Councilmember Sparks.
yes, thank you. I think that's great that this is getting built. I think a lot of household hazardous waste is going in the trash can and down the drain in North County right now, probably. So I think this will be a huge improvement environmentally to have somewhere to get rid of that stuff where it's disposed properly. And as far as the interest rate of the loan, I think, that's all for the county to figure out with the agency, and I don't want to stand in the way of any of that happening. So I'm in support of this.
And then my understanding too is that in addition, there's no additional cost to Cotati residents, is something that I saw in the report as well. Okay, any other comments?
I think this is a good option for them to explore, and I think it'd be a good idea to have Leslie come back and give us more presentation on what efforts they're doing there to minimize any risks that we have at the facility.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, so this one, this one require a vote? Yes. Action item. So we're adopting a resolution approving the First Amendment and to the joint powers, and also the First Amendment to the central disposal site and former landfill settlement agreement. So if there's any other comments, can we get a motion on this? Unless.
Can I just say so moved, what you just said?
Okay. So because I made the motion and second.
Okay, second?
Second, okay. Okay, so we'll get a roll call.
That was that was Mayor Lemus with the motion and Sparks with the second. Did I get that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Councilmember Savage?
Yes.
Councilmember Sparks?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Harvey?
Yes.
Mayor Lemus?
Yes. Thank you, everybody. Okay, our next item we have is the freeway-oriented development zoning overlay, and I think we have a presentation for that as well. Noah?
Thank you, Mayor Lemus. Members of the council, I have a PowerPoint coming up. But yeah, the item before you this evening is a workshop to discuss a potential freeway-oriented development zoning overlay. Staff seeking input from the city council and the public on the concept before bringing forward an ordinance for consideration. No decisions are being made tonight, and nothing in the proposal has been decided. This is just an initial first conversation to have with the public and the council. And the goal is to consider and discuss the concepts and ideas that are being proposed, and then to provide direction to staff to kind of further iterate and hone the ordinance. And we'll go to the next slide. Tonight's presentation is going to cover kind of how we got here, some of the council goals and work plan direction for our department, some of the stakeholder direct engagement efforts that we've made, kind of what a freeway-oriented overlay district is, some potential zoning code changes that are included in the information before the council this evening, and then some of the next steps in the review process. And so we'll just get right into it with the next slide. So the city council has adopted goals that kind of guide a lot of the, or all of really the staff's efforts. And, you know, in addition to addressing climate change and providing best-in-class service and some of the other goals that the council's identified, one of the adopted goals is to ensure the long-term vitality of the city. And under that long-term vitality goal, there's the goal to have a balanced budget, which we do every year or now biannually with the Administrative Services Department. And then also to make sure we have a solid economic development strategy that includes elements like business attraction and retention, removing barriers to business, and promoting Cotati as a location to do business. And so this project was intended in the work plan for the Community Development Department in the 25-26 fiscal year. We got to it kind of late in that fiscal year, but we did start in February, and then so this process is kind of crossing over into this fiscal year, and it was identified as part of our work plan that the council saw had going into this summer. We'll go to the next slide. So just to give a brief summary on what engagement efforts we've done so far. So the freeway-oriented development concept is focused on the industrial neighborhood, which is one of the primary economic areas of Cotati. It's highlighted in the general plan as an area to support economically. And as I mentioned, we started with our initial engagement in February, reaching out to property and business owners in this neighborhood, primarily focused on Redwood Drive, but we've actually been talking to all of the business owners in that entire industrial district. We sent direct letters, we made phone calls, we kind of went door to door in some instances, visiting businesses and having discussions about kind of what their operational challenges and opportunities might be over in that neighborhood. And the goal is to build on the economic development efforts to support this industrial district that the city has prioritized. And so we will go to the next slide. So what is a freeway-oriented district? So it's essentially a zoning tool that allows or intends to intensify land uses near major highways. It essentially recognizes the unique characteristics of freeway-adjacent properties, namely their high visibility, their ability to draw customers from a broader region, and the ease of access in theory because of the close proximity to a major freeway or circulation infrastructure. They often encourage these regional serving uses to locate it in these areas, or sometimes have even high density residential developments to just be able to move high numbers of people throughout an area on and off the freeway. Around the state, overlays often allow enhanced signage, they streamline commercial approvals, they encourage investment and economic activity. And it's important to, as we think about these, and other cities do this, to balance the goals of the community aesthetics and, you know, kind of circulation and safety with regards to traffic expectations with these intensification efforts. So that's an important element to consider. And just to note, Highway 101 in this location has between 40,000 and 100,000 cars a day driving by, according to both Caltrans data and SCTCA data. So it is a real opportunity to kind of serve a customer base beyond just folks who live or work in Cotati. So we'll go to the next slide. So then how do we Cotadify a freeway-oriented district? And so some of the things that we are wanting to look at, because our area is fully developed. So we have kind of different priorities than were mentioned generally, or we may have. So the goal really is just to encourage reinvestment in these freeway visible properties. Some of them haven't had a lot of investment since, frankly, they were initially built in the 1960s and 70s. We want to promote the businesses that are there, being able to attract new customers to them and retain their economic activity. We want to kind of broaden the amount of economic activity and tax generating uses that are locating in that neighborhood. And the idea is to improve visibility of those folks, facilitate the kind of adaptive reuse of those existing buildings, and create some regulations that would support those efforts, but then also balance the needs and goals of the community. And one of the other unique elements of the Cotati area is we don't have any residences in this proposed area. So it allows us to kind of take off the table some of the potential impacts of kind of conflicts between really intense residential and commercial uses. We'll go to the next slide. And so this is an aerial photo of the of the neighborhood looking from the east. So we're looking west. There's Lowe's is labeled in the far left of the slide, and Pods kind of in the north right area, the top right. And then if you click the slide one more time, it will highlight the industrial district, which that's challenging to see, but the neighborhood is surrounded there in red. And if you click the slide one more time, it'll highlight the area proposed to be designated with the freeway-oriented designation. So it's a limited portion of that industrial neighborhood, and all of the properties have frontage or touch, a portion of them touch Redwood Drive. And we'll go to the next slide. And this is just the same boundary, but with a different perspective. This is an aerial perspective, and it just highlights all of the properties. So these are all of the individual parcels, and this graphic was sent in a letter that was mailed out to all of those property owners and talked about some of the things that are being considered with the freeway-oriented project. So we'll go to the next slide. So then now getting into some of the specifics that are included in the staff report as conceptual zoning code changes. We consistently heard a desire for more signs, and so one of the proposals is to allow some additional signage, whether it's in height or additional square footage. So between an additional 50 or 100 square feet per business is what's being considered by staff. Expanding some of the monument or freestanding sign opportunities to allow pole signs, which there are currently pole signs out there, but our code doesn't allow them, so they're non-conforming as a sign type. Also, there's an idea to expand some of the directory sign opportunities. We've heard from some businesses that it's challenging to find them just because there's kind of a lot of smaller businesses in some of the buildings. And then allow those freeway-oriented pole signs to be up to 25 feet in height. There are some other citywide changes proposed to the zoning code that are included as a conceptual element, and that would be the elimination of a sign program requirement, still allowing sign programs, but just not requiring them for shopping centers. And I'm happy to talk about that more if there's questions on those details. Allowing monument heights an additional 2 feet. Right now they're limited to 6 feet. The proposal would allow them to go to 8 feet citywide. And then modernizing some of the lighting options. If you see in the code right now, the lighting for signage essentially anticipates everything's going to be externally illuminated. And that is kind of an antiquated lighting style, and it also leads to light pollution and kind of takes away from some of the modern sign design opportunities that there are out there. We'll keep going to the next slide. This shows some of those existing non-conforming signs. So Dunn Edwards currently has what we think is the tallest sign out there, which is 20 feet. And then the Sonoma Backyard has one, and then moving on down, AAA also has one. And these are considered pole signs, and they would not be allowed under the current code. So this change would kind of bring those into a conforming status, and then, as is currently written, would allow the signs to be 5 feet taller than the Dunn Edwards sign. We'll go to the next slide. Some of the other things we heard about is just the kind of marketing and sales promotional activities. So some of the ideas that are proposed here would be to kind of allow, right now, currently, most sales events require a limited term permit. So that has a significant fee and a processing time and a lot of administrative review. So changes in the freeway-oriented development could allow certain activities by right, like holiday or seasonal sales events, outdoor merchandise displays, vehicle promotions, and other business-sponsored events. And the potential impacts of those would be managed through creating objective standards that just says if you want to do one of these events, you have to do it subject to these regulations, which is essentially what we do now when they go through the limited term permit process. We would just create some that would be kind of blanket to allow certain types of activities out there. We did hear from the Sonoma Outdoor owner that it might be nice to have some outdoor displays of materials, and then the Harley-Davidson goes through the process every year paying the city over $1,000 to have their promotional sales ride. And that's one thing that we essentially are very familiar with. We could definitely regulate it with kind of objective standards. We'll go to the next slide. And then the last kind of bucket of changes being considered is just expanding the allowable land uses out there. Only one use is proposed to go to becoming by right. That's a doctor's office. We consistently hear from the community a desire to have more medical services in Cotati. And so from the staff perspective, essentially allowing a doctor's office to operate anywhere in the city would be a good change to just take advantage of any future opportunities. And then there are proposals to take some uses that currently require a major use permit down to a minor use permit, and allow kind of a little bit more uses that may not be allowed at all now to be allowed there with a minor use permit. And so this is a list of some of those. And it is worth noting that the small recycling facility is actually currently a permitted use in the industrial district. And the proposed change is to make that a minor use permit, and the Planning Commission is actually recommending that go to a full use permit, just to be able to address the potential impacts of those. So that's the one use that is proposed to go more restrictive rather than less, as it is currently. There is a proposal, it's worth noting, or it's just identified in the list, to consider allowing drive-through sales. And that kind of goes along with potentially expanding the allowance that the city has for formula-based businesses into the industrial area. Currently, the city has a kind of a budget of about 8 formula-based businesses that are allowed citywide, but they're not allowed in this district. So that would just be one idea to expand that into this part of town. So going to the next slide. It's a summary of the Planning Commission recommendations, and they're recommending to expand the boundary that we showed earlier south along Redwood Drive to the gas stations there that straddle 116. They supported allowing the sales and promotional events, the additional sign types and heights, and maybe some additional temporary signs for those sales events, updating the illumination and lighting of signs, continuing to prohibit electronic message board signs, and to be conscious of unintended consequences like light pollution and blight that could come with some of these increased flexibilities if they weren't done in a thoughtful manner. And then the commission was very strong in their recommendation. It was unanimous to keep the freeway-oriented development district on the west side of 101 only. And this shows what the next slide shows what that expanded boundary would look like. And I'm sorry you can't see that it just expands a little bit further to the south to include Lowe's, the Gravenstein Business Center, which is Mercy, and the Hot Tub Place, and allow a few other businesses there, and then the gas stations. And so we'll go to the next slide. So the timeline for where we are and where we would head, so we had the same workshop with the Planning Commission last Monday on the 20th. Tonight, the 28th, we're here to discuss this with the council and the community. And then staff will take any direction we receive tonight, work on a formal ordinance, and then the earliest that would come back before the Planning Commission would be on September 21st, and that would be at a full public hearing, noticed and reviewed with the, the public hearing requirements that would include mailing and publication in the newspaper. And then we would be brought back to the council for their consideration and first reading in October likely. And then a second reading with the city council also in October, all at public hearings. And so with that, that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions. Oh, I do want to highlight, there were a number of letters that came in since the publication of the agenda. Primarily, the comments were focused on concerns with the proliferation of signs, the expansion of some of these regulations beyond the district, and kind of how some of the potential safety impacts and traffic impacts that could result from these types of changes. And then also there was some comments supporting the goals and priorities of the project, and one comment letter that supported all the proposed changes. So that concludes my presentation.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to start with City Council and any questions you might have of staff on this item. Okay, Councilmember Sparks?
Thank you. I had two questions. First question was about, I did, when we got so many letters, I did go back and kind of watch the part of the Planning Commission meeting, and there was some discussion about like temporary signs placed out during business hours. Is there anything I'm missing in this ordinance, in this project that addresses that, or is that sort of not within the scope of what we're doing here?
Yeah, so no changes are proposed to the A-frame signs. The city, Cotati actually allows A-frame signs. It's one of the only cities in the county that does. And it has a whole set of criteria and regulations, those objective standards as to how those A-frame signs are used. There was a discussion in allowing more temporary signage types like maybe balloons or banners, or even the feather signs, which are the tall, narrow ones that just flap. So the commission was generally supportive of allowing some additional temporary signs to go along with the sales and promotional activities.
Okay, thank you. And then my second question was just, could you explain a little how exactly, because just for my benefit, how exactly the master sign program works now?
Yeah.
And then what the experience will be if it's gone?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So a master sign program, and there was kind of a trend in planning to require any multi-tenant commercial shopping center to implement a master sign program. And the idea is the landlord identifies all of the locations and the styles of all the tenant space signs before they're occupied by tenants. And the goal is to really, the idea is you'll minimize kind of visual blight and garishness of overpopulating signs by having them be very consistent and similar across all the tenant spaces. The reality is, a small business spends a lot of time on their branding and their imaging and their colors and their logos. And so what ends up happening is, an individual tenant space gets rented by a new business. Inevitably, their logo or their color doesn't fit the sign program. So then that tenant is responsible for updating the sign program, dealing with the city to do so before they can even get their sign permit. And they're doing it from the perspective of only getting their sign updated. So then you have to go through this constant iteration of sign programs being written or funded by individuals who really don't have the perspective of the entire shopping center in mind. And they don't want to pay to have their sign designer design or update all of the signs. They're just worried about getting their individual. So what it does is it ends up putting a lot of administrative effort on the city, a lot of extra cost on the business owners, and the real benefits are limited. There are, from the staff perspective, having unique signage that reflect the character of the individual businesses, there's benefits to that. There's a lot of regulations on the signs. There's, over 20 pages already regulating signs, even separate from the sign program requirement. We will still limit the size, we'll still limit the type, we'll still identify the location for the signs. It just won't have to be through this master sign program, which from the staff perspective is kind of based on the idealistic idea of how signs work.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I see a hand up with Vice Mayor Harvey. Go ahead with your questions.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions. So it's a little confusing because in some spots it says increased sign area allowing additional 50 square feet. And at one point it said per parcel, and then at another point it says per business, which when we have parcels that may have 10 or 15 businesses in them, that could create a lot of signage. So did you mean for that to be really per business where there's 10 or 15 businesses?
Yeah, thank you, Vice Mayor Harvey. So the 50 to 100 square foot concept was allowing additional signs per business so that their signs could be a little bit bigger to orient to the freeway, whether they are a monument sign, a pole sign, or a wall sign. But to your point, there are a lot of other regulations that affect the size of a sign that is allowed on an individual tenant space. And so when somebody comes in to propose a sign, they essentially have a square footage budget that's based on the linear width of their tenant space. So if you have a 100-foot wide wall that your business occupies, then you get 100 square feet. If you have a 50 square foot, then you have a 50. So there's other limitations that would address the issue that you're raising. If we allow more square footage, obviously that formula would have to change, and there is the potential for it to be kind of turn into a visual clutter and blight. And if it's supported by the council, then staff would go back and come up with a way that would address that concern, because it is a valid one.
Well, because one of the other things in here in the general signs, it sounds like for everything, is you're taking pole signs away from being prohibitive, which could mean that those 10 to 15 businesses could also then each ask for a pole sign.
Yeah, and so we would address that by either allowing or having a property owner designate like a master tenant and only allowing them to be located on the pole sign, or that the pole sign be designed in a way that it would allow each of the tenants to have a sign panel on that larger sign, up to something that would make sense, obviously. But yeah, the goal would not be to have each tenant have their own pole sign. Rather, one property that maybe has 3 to 5 tenants could have a larger pole sign with a panel for each of those tenants.
Okay, that makes sense. And then in the staff recommendations for the by right for the objective operational standards for events, I like the things that you have on here, but one, and I'm assuming public safety considerations means like traffic and things like that, because I know that that's been a concern a lot of times on Redwood Drive. Is that what you mean by public safety consideration?
That is correct.
Okay, and the thing that I don't see on here when we change something to by right, and that's neighbor contact. So some of those parcels have multiple neighbors, and when we make something by right, then people don't get to know about it. So is there any, have you given any consideration for notification of neighboring tenants?
Yeah, we hadn't, that's not currently baked into the list of kind of operational characteristics, but it's absolutely something we could do. It would be somewhat tough to verify if we got in a situation where somebody said, I sent them a letter and they said I didn't get it, but yeah, we could definitely do that.
Okay, yeah, because like right now, with having to get the event permit, they get notified and they can comment on it, but if we do it by right, then, you know, they don't get a say, and I would hate to pit neighbor against neighbor. That always concerns me. My next question has to do with the section that you talked about, the minor use permit in this area. Is there a reason that you are including the formula-based restaurants, since we have gone into nauseating sets of details on that whole ordinance having to do with formula-based restaurants? Is there a reason that it was added here?
Yeah, so the reason was essentially to allow, or consider allowing those types of businesses into this location. Formula-based restaurants are often freeway-oriented. You know, they take advantage of pass-by traffic and convenient traffic. I think there's studies that show some large percentage of trips to a fast food restaurant are purely based on convenience. You need food and it's right there and you're driving by. And so that was the idea, and also with the goal of maybe getting some redevelopment of some of those underdeveloped properties along Redwood Drive that are going to take a lot of investment for somebody to come in and redevelop. And those type of larger, more corporate style restaurants are one such business type that will occasionally undertake that effort to redevelop. So that was the idea.
So my concern here is that then we have split, if you will, formula-based. You're having it in this FOD and you're having it in the formula-based restaurant section that we have. Would it not be better to update, if you will, to add another section in the formula-based, and maybe, like we did in the other areas, identify certain numbers of things? It concerns me that we have things split then.
Yeah, no, that was the idea, is to just essentially allow them to be more distributed through the city, not increase the number, just allow them in another place that they're currently not allowed.
But we identify very specific numbers in each of those areas in that particular ordinance.
Yeah, so if the direction was to consider for this, then yes, we would have to kind of reshuffle that budget of those uses across all the land use types. Yeah.
Okay. All right, that's what I was asking. And in the prohibited sign section, you've eliminated item F, which is pole signs and other freestanding signs over 6 feet in height. But that's in the section for all signs, not just this area, correct?
That's correct, because we don't want to call them out as prohibited if they're allowed, and then we would limit them as only allowed in this specific area through other changes to the code.
Okay, so that's how you'd control that, because what my concern is all of a sudden we'd have, 20 pole signs down at the Oliver Center, because everybody would want a pole sign.
Totally understood.
Okay, and I guess I do want to understand why exactly the Planning Commission wanted to extend all the way to 116. I couldn't get any information on that, especially considering those areas, both on either side of 116, the redwood tree growth is so large that there's really not much you could do to see from the freeway other than cut down redwood trees to be able to see signage. So what was that all about?
Yeah, I think they were just recognizing the proximity to the on and off ramps, and that they may be able to benefit from some of these changes. There is definitely not an intent to remove any trees to improve visibility.
Okay, but that's kind of the things that you're suggesting for that really would only work if you remove the trees to actually be seen from the freeway.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't done a study. I think two of the signs that are fronting onto Highway 116 might be able to provide some freeway visibility. And then maybe the Lowe's sign could be more visible from the freeway as it's on the corner, kind of facing Redwood and the freeway now, but it's not very tall. So that's the idea.
Okay. Okay, that's what I was trying to understand. Those are my questions for now. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, I've got a few questions.
Okay,
I also wanted to get more information on the extending down to 116 to understand that better. Looking at the recommendations from the Planning Commission, is there anything in here that specifically addresses allowing more types of business like medical, other retail, restaurants, and things like that from their recommendations?
Well, they were supportive of the current list, but, you know, we've tried to really, as we've talked about before, retail is changing, you know, land uses are kind of blending more than they ever have or before they were really segmented. And so there's been a thought to try to allow that blending to happen, but then to also put regulations in place to where not everything is allowed by right, because you need to regulate some of these uses that have a regional draw. They just may have a lot of traffic, they may use a lot of square footage, and so it's a balance of that. There wasn't specific uses necessarily talked about other than what was in that list.
Okay. I mean, it's kind of interesting, the whole signage concept, because, I mean, so many people, Surrey, take me to Lowe's, and I mean, our signs on the way out. You hate to get tethered to an extensive, you know, sign situation if signs 20 years from now aren't even going to be a thing. On the pole signs, are they also typically part of the master sign programs?
Yeah, it's the pole signs that we have are all on individual properties, and so they wouldn't be necessarily, because the master sign programs would only be for multi-tenant properties. But there is a large multi-tenant property on the very north end of town that did express some interest in some additional signage, and if they came in, it would be a multi-tenant situation that if we don't change the regulation to eliminate the sign program, then that would be required. But the staff's intent is to write regulations that cover multi-tenant situations to ensure we don't get these proliferation of monument or pole signs in those situations, even without the program.
Is that something we currently spend a lot of time on? Trying to
Yeah, so the programs, you know, in theory, when a shopping center is built, we get a program put in place by the landlord, which we haven't had a shopping center built in a number of years. I think the Lowe's is probably the last one that was intended to be a shopping center. So our effort that we spend now is just haggling, frankly, with individual tenants, trying to move into a tenant space and fit what they want to do into the program or modify the program to allow them to do what they want to do.
I mean, my initial thoughts are, I like master sign programs. I think aesthetically they add a lot to the community, but perhaps ours could be modernized to maybe take out some pain points, because I think that's a valid situation as well, but I would hate to just wholesale do away with a master sign program. I think the sales events, doing more to support that is very good. I think the lighting, modernize the lighting situation would be good. There are some comments around outdoor displays, and is that simply being less strict on those, or is that something that's prohibited now and anything would be less restrictive, or?
Yeah, so right now, an outdoor display in sales requires a minor use permit approval or design review, depending on how you want to do it. And so the idea was to allow either outdoor display, but with a limited time, or a sales event, like a seasonal sales event that would allow you to use outdoor merchandise as part of it, but limit it the frequency, and then also make sure it has to get completely removed and put back every.
Okay, yeah, because I know that I see some along there, but I didn't know if they were permitted or not permitted type of situation. I think, making the pole situation to accommodate what's out there is good, because those are very attractive and professional signage, I think, like Dan Edwards has and those guys. I think I would want more information on why we would want to be less restrictive on some of the use permits for medical and formula stores and other retail out there. I mean, it kind of gets in your head that's an industrial area, and I'm not initially saying, oh, let's make that less restrictive. I think that there would need to be some compelling, information on that. That's all I have.
Thank you. I just want to share that some cities in Mexico, like Pátzcuaro, have a master sign program, Extremes, where all the buildings are like this bland color. The lettering is red, even if it's a Starbucks, it's like same red lettering, no matter the building, so it looks the same. So I can see that we don't want that here. We want something different here. But I had a question about the pole signs with directional signing. Is that similar to Windsor Beverage District?
Yeah, so that's a directory or a wayfinding sign, so that's separate. So the idea is pole signs are basically what we have out there now, so it's a sign with an advertising brand for that specific business, whereas those wayfinding signs are more of like a marketing effort that a city will use to kind of represent a certain type of district, like you said, the beverage district in Windsor. There's some for wineries around the county.
But yeah, I've seen some poles, and then they have like the names of all the different businesses that are on that street.
Correct. So it is often done with the pole because it just fits well with a lot of different labels pointing in a lot of different directions. But typically when these are written, you'll have the sign types really well defined. And so a pole sign by its nature will be one more like we have out there now. And then what you're describing would be called more either the directory sign or a wayfinding sign. But it would be allowed to be done through that pole design.
Okay. So while it's not master sign program, it would combine still different businesses. It could.
There's some, one of the ideas is to allow different directory type signs, and that's something that we could start to look at. Oftentimes with what you're describing, the city's more involved because it's in the right of way, and we put a lot of constraints and requirements on it to make sure it's not really a pure, we don't want it to become advertising with logos and all those things. It's more to serve as a way to get people around, but to show people who might be driving on Redwood Drive, oh, there is a brewery down there, or as you see in the beverage district or in some of the areas in West County with the wineries.
Okay. Yes, I think one of my concerns when we first looked at this is signs, all along the freeway as a distraction, and it could, garish, I think is a word that I saw. So that's something that'd be concerning. But I'm glad that we're having this workshop and the public still has a lot of input. I did receive and review the letters as well, so I'm looking forward to more input and participation by the residents too, to make sure that we get this right. Because at the same time, when we look at the reasons and economic vitality that you're talking about for a city, we have a healthy budget, right now, but it's true that revenues are flat, and so we kind of have to see where we can support businesses so we can continue to drive the revenues that we need for our city here too. So it's a balance. So I'm looking forward to kind of input from residents and staff and our council too in this. Okay. So we're going to go to public comment now. Can we go to online first?
Thank you, Mayor Lemus. Once again, Zoom attendees, if you would like to make a public comment on this item, please use the raise hand icon. The first hand is from Neil. You have the floor.
Yes, good evening, Council. Thank you for bringing this back as a workshop. I would say that signs are about the character of the town. Given the location and the request for visibility on Highway 101, I certainly think we should think about unintended consequences of safety. So we have the Vision Zero goals, and we see a grim trade-off across the country of over 40,000 traffic deaths a year. There's research that shows that general external distractions, broader traffic safety literature estimates that the external roadside visual distractions as a whole can account for up to 10% of all traffic accidents. So, Vision Zero, aiming for zero, is a very difficult number for a small town like Cotati. But if you've got 100,000 vehicles that are going through and you're trying to catch more of a driver's attention on that, it's a very difficult problem. It's a very difficult idea to investigate, but I definitely think we should be trying to inform people on Redwood Drive rather than trying to be an attractor on Highway 101. So with that, I mean, I really like the monument signs that are around town, and I think a lot of effort has been made that goes into that. Coming off Highway 101, Lowe's monument sign stands up, is visible. So generally, I certainly don't support pole signs all over the town, and I just question, you know, for the few properties that are out there that haven't got pole signs, I'm fine with the history of having the pole signs there, but, you know, having a whole lot of new pole signs, I just don't know what the benefits are. Temporary signs with moving type things, I think just really blight an area. And then you've got for Redwood Drive, you've got overhead power lines as well to consider there. So if you're starting to have something visually very big, I just question the safety of that with the power lines and 2 distracting drivers on 101. When it comes to larger monument spaces, making a larger monument sign size, I think if that's a benefit, then I think that works. I think there's already the question of digital signs has been covered. That doesn't mean that, so that is good. When it comes to extending food to the CI area, if it was just for local consumption, lunchtime usage, I think that could be one thing. But otherwise, I mean, we don't want to pull people. We don't want to have traffic, people driving into those areas at night for food and beverage. So anyway, that's my comments. Thank you very much.
Seeing no further hands on Zoom.
Okay, thank you. So we'll bring that back into the
Sorry,
room.
we did just get one more
Okay,
hand.
go ahead.
I'm sorry, Mayor Lemus. Thank you. Lori Ann Barber, you have the floor.
Thank you. Sorry for being a little late to raise my hand. I did send in a comment, and I just wanted to say a couple of quick things. I do agree with some of what Neil said, that I really do think that where you want to get people's attention is on Redwood Drive, that sometimes people just literally need help to find a place that they're already going to. So making sure that, you know, that people can find businesses when they're in the area does make sense to me. I'm sorry, I mostly wanted to say, you know, that I think it's important to support our businesses and help them be, you know, successful, so that it's not an area that ends up with all kinds of empty spaces and that we lose the tax revenue. But I just wanted to emphasize that I think it's important that the changes being suggested stay in this area, and I know that's what's being proposed, but I just want to say it out loud that I don't think most of what's being proposed here would be appropriate in other parts of town. So, in terms of, I think I understand that some of these potential new uses are because of like the changes in what happens in areas, and maybe there's less business and more need for other things. But I think it's important to consider, as the Planning Commission said, sort of the unintended consequences, and just be really aware of that in terms of, they said light pollution, but I would also be concerned about air pollution. That's why I'm not in favor of drive-through services. And also potentially other kinds of pollution if a small recycling facility would want to come in. So just really being cognizant of those kinds of things. And then as far as the formula-based restaurants, the idea that it wouldn't, they could be in this area, but we're not necessarily increasing the number, that makes sense to me. So I think those are kind of the points I wanted to make. So thank you very much.
Thank you. That was the last hand for the Zoom portion of public comment.
Okay, thank you. So we'll bring that back to the room. So I have a card from Jenny Blaker.
Thank you. there's been a lot of discussion about signs, but as Susan Harvey said, you can really only get a fleeting glimpse from Redwood Highway, mostly because of the trees and the vegetation. You just flash past, quickly see a few of the signs, and that's it. It seems that in terms of signs, the most important thing is people being able to find the businesses they're looking for. And driving around that area, some of them are very clear, some of them are not. They're hidden, or they're difficult to read, or you can't even really see if this building has a sign at all. So I think it has a lot to do with the design and placement of those signs rather than big signs along the freeway. I'm wondering if there are other ways to help the businesses, like having a directory of businesses, so because a lot of people are looking online for what they want, and then they go to find the place, rather than flashing by on the freeway and suddenly thinking, oh, I'll go there. Some of the things that weren't mentioned at all were all the housing that's going to be coming in on Highway 116 and what the residents might want, the pedestrian bridge that's going to go over Copeland Creek in Roanoke Park, and that there will be a trail connecting from Crane Creek Park west to Sebastopol, and that creek needs to be protected from pollution and could also open up opportunities for serving people on the bike trail, if that's an appropriate place to have, say, food or a bike shop. The Laguna goes right through the middle of the industrial area, so I would be concerned about water pollution, and I'm thinking it's also an opportunity to think about taking care of the Laguna in the industrial area, because some of the businesses just have a lot of trash and stuff at the back, but there's some really lovely walking trails along there, and they could be better known and better used and perhaps be incorporated somehow. The red flags that came up for me were letting this extend to other areas, so that the idea that this is just an initial thing and then it could go to other areas. I'm concerned about the timeline and getting this finished by October, because I think if more people knew about it, we might get more people coming to the public hearings and giving their input. I'm concerned about lifting the ban on drive-throughs, and I noticed that Napa is actually thinking of having a new ban on drive-throughs. So why is Cotati going backwards? They did this a long time ago. A lot of work went into the fast food chain ordinance, and I think we need to stick to that. I'm concerned about fast food franchises coming in and competing with all the wonderful local home, small independently owned businesses that we have in Cotati, including on 116. And then I'm wondering, I think the original idea behind zoning was to separate the uses, so you wouldn't have residential next door to industrial.
Jenny, it's time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jenny. Anyone else in the room that would like to speak on this item? Nobody else? Okay, I'll bring it back to council for comments. And we're not making a decision, but we're just giving ideas and feedback.
I just want to say thank you for all this information. It's very helpful and very well organized, and kind of focuses on what's really at stake here. I think that getting some more information, as we've talked about in some of our earlier comments, to help us understand some of the changes. I'm concerned about making things less restrictive. I think we've had a successful program for the neighborhood, and unless we've got people lined up at the door waiting to put shovels in the ground, I'm not sure making changes to accommodate maybes is a good thing to do. And then I'm just not sure what the future of signage is for businesses. I kind of agree with the comments that, I don't think people are driving up and down a 6-lane highway and seeing a sign and saying, oh, I need to go to that business and get some paint. I think once they get off the highways and they're in the neighborhoods and they're trying to find the businesses through that maze sometimes, I think doing signage that helps them at that point looks like it has a real need. So those are just some of my initial comments.
Okay, anyone else on council? Okay, Councilman Sparks?
Thank you. I had several comments. I have 5 comments. I'm sorry. Okay, first one was at various places throughout the staff report, there was mention of that these freeway-oriented overlays tend to support auto-centric uses. And I know that our staff is incredibly talented at taking the intent that we've put forward at the council level and then running with it. So even though there wasn't too much in here that was super automobile oriented, just having that language in there about that this is promoting auto-centric uses, I don't think that that's the intent that we really have at the council level usually. So I would just like to mention that and say, I definitely agree with one of the comments we heard that we need to discuss all that residential housing that's planned in that area and be thinking of that particular area as a residential area primarily, because there would be so many residents living there. And so that I just wanted to say that out loud, that I don't want this to be thought of as promoting auto-centric things primarily. Okay, that was comment one. Second comment, I am in favor of continuing to explore the signage changes. I'm supportive of at least going ahead to the next steps with the changes that a lot of the businesses asked for, and just seeing what staff can come up with in terms of a proposal that balances all of that. I don't think 50 square feet is really as big as it sounds. It's not like a huge change in square footage, really, especially if you're viewing it from 100 feet away. It doesn't really look that big. So I'm not too worried about exploring that idea and at least seeing what it would look like in more detail. So I'm supportive of going forward with that and coming back with a proposal. Okay, as far as, that was second one. Third comment, as far as the drive-through, do not support that change. I do not support the formula-based restaurant change. And I do not support extending the size of the overlay down to 76. I think it should stay at the original shape that was proposed. I know the Planning Commission had a lot of great discussion about that, and I understand the reasoning that let's be consistent. If we're going to apply this to things by the freeway, then let's apply it to all the things by the freeway. But I don't think there was enough conversation about all that residential construction that's going to be going in right in that area. And that area, from a planning perspective, calling that area freeway-oriented business and then also calling it residential at the same time is just in tension. Those two ideas are in tension with one another, and I don't think we should extend the zone down to that because of all that residential that's going in. We've heard, to that point, we've heard from residents in the development along Alder, kind of behind Lowe's, in a lot of the conversations that I've had with people who live back there, that they don't really feel connected to the city of Cotati. They'll sometimes more likely to drive up to Runnert Park for their needs. The pedestrian and bicycle connectivity into like the downtown area is not great, and it's a huge priority of mine that we strengthen that connection, especially with all that new housing going in. And so I think thinking of this area as a place where we're going to draw people from outside the area into drive-through restaurants or formula-based restaurants, it's sort of at cross purposes to trying to make this area with all this new residential development feel like a part of our community. These changes, I think, would make it feel more like a different community because it would have a different character to what the rest of Cotati has. So I hope that explains why I know the Planning Commission put a lot of work into those conversations, so I want to explain why I'm not supportive of that change. Okay, fourth point. One more thing about that is just that a formula-based restaurant would draw a lot of traffic in the evening, like right at dinner time, right when people are coming home from work. And I think that's just the wrong time to be trying to bring traffic through that area with all the new housing that's planned to go in. Okay, fourth point, I support requiring a full use permit for a recycling facility. All the other changes I thought were good, that added a little bit of flexibility. And then the last comment I had was on page 243 of the packet. I guess this is also a question and a comment. Section A on page 243 says the FOD overlay zone may be applied to commercial properties on the east side of Highway 101 freeway, et cetera, and within 1,000 feet of the freeway right away. So I'm just not quite understanding what we're proposing, since everything we saw in picture form showed the area west of the freeway, but then this talks about, oh, we can apply this overlay to other areas as well. So is that envisioning things that might happen in the future, or?
I think that's existing code language. I'm just trying to make sure. I'm sorry, I don't.
What's in red?
It's
so
in
that's
red,
proposed
yeah.
changes.
Let me. I have to look at my electronic packet to see the.
I'm sorry.
Pages. No problem. No,
I
it's
can figure
it's
out
good.
what page it is on the.
As he's looking that up, I will say that it's my understanding that it's pretty common to have freeway overlays or freeway zoning in cities along freeways, and just by the extension on both sides of the freeway. But we're not, what we're talking about, he said, I think he's referencing there might be a description in the existing code that sort of broadly describes sort of freeway serving businesses, but what we're talking about tonight and what the intent was in the work plan and the intent tonight is to look at the west side only at this time. That's not, it doesn't say that at some future time there's some desire by the council to look at the east side also.
Okay, I don't understand then, because then it says on here, it can be applied to commercial properties on the east side of 101.
Oh, sorry. Yes, because there's existing code language talking about freeway-oriented signage being on both the east side and the west side. So in creating this new overlay, the concept language, staff wanted to recognize the past decisions or codified direction that recognized potential for freeway-oriented elements to be also on the east side. If the direction is absolutely not, then that's clear. But when I was putting this together, it was based on what the current code says. And so that, I can give you the code reference if you want to see it. But essentially, there's a description of what freeway-oriented means for signs. Mm-hmm. And it says within, I think, 500 feet of 101 on the east side and within 1,000 feet of 101 on the west side. So there was some past kind of recognition of essentially allowing businesses to advertise towards 101 through the previous code. It seems like it's been kind of modified and changed, and that's likely how those pole signs that we have on the west side got approved. The Dunn Edwards one was done in '88, I saw. Okay. So when this was written, it recognizes that, but again, it's a concept, it's throwing it out there. So we'll take the direction from council.
I think personally, thank you, that makes a lot more sense. I appreciate that. I think personally, I'd like to maybe, when you bring this back, to just clarify that and maybe change what that's called. Because if we're calling this the freeway-oriented development overlay, having something in existing code that talks about freeway-oriented signs, but isn't really exactly the same thing as our, it's just very confusing.
Understood.
So my preference is let's just do this in the area that's on the picture, not extended down, not anywhere else, and then make the language really clear about that.
Okay, thank you. And then we have Vice Mayor Harvey.
Yes, I'll try and be quick. I agree with Council Member Sparks on the fast food. I don't think we should be extending that. I'd have to be really convinced of that. I also agree on the no drive-through and also limiting it to Hellman Lane. I think that there's a lot of other stuff going on past that. I agree with all the comments made on the development and all that. I also agree on the that the overlay should only be for the west side of the freeway and not on the east side. And lastly, I mentioned it, but I want to make sure that it gets in there that we have, for events, that we have consideration of other tenants if we're going to do this by right. But other than that, I agree with the other comments.
Okay, thank you. Oh, I think a lot has already been said that I agree with as well. The no drive-throughs and nor formally based restaurant base because of traffic and other impacts. And I want to further explore some of the different uses that could happen. You had mentioned doctors or something, and I can kind of see see that happening. There's already physical training services, mobility in the area that I think that chiropractors or something, and maybe even potential urgent care or something in the future as healthcare situation changes. I wonder if there could be like a small, like in Petaluma has a 2-room kind of urgent care, something. Just some potential things to look at. But I agree with everyone as well. Okay, so this one there's just information, no decision on this one. Right?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, so we are done with that item. Thank you, everybody. The next item that I have on here, get back to here. Next is we have the land acknowledgement and the Pledge of Allegiance. So I want to ask if you can please stand with us for land acknowledgement. The City of Cotati recognizes that we're on the ancestral lands of the coastal Miwok, who are the original caretakers of this area. We respectfully acknowledge the indigenous people who have been stewarding and maintaining a relationship on this land as knowledge keepers for millennia. This acknowledgement does not take the place of authentic relationships with indigenous communities, but serves as a gesture of respect to the land that we are on. And now let's do Pledge of Allegiance. Next, we'll go to city managers and council member reports, and we'll start with city managers report.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, Council. So SCTCA staff presented the recommendations on 72 projects requesting nearly $800 million from available Cycle 2 funding sources. This is for basically transportation funding in Sonoma County. Of the city's 5 priority projects submitted, 2 are on the list for funding: the Highway 116 West Cotati Avenue interchange improvement, to assist in the residential development we were just talking about in the prior item. And also Valparaiso and Hellman Street Rehab Project. So Highway 116 is tentatively awarded $2 million and of the $3 million that was requested, and the Valparaiso Hellman project was tentatively awarded $1.7 million of the $1.7 million requested. So this list goes to MTC. It is about 25% over what this region has, so it might get reduced. The numbers are all preliminary in terms of transportation funding at this point. But once it comes back, it'll go to the CAC, the TAC, and then the board for final approval. And I believe the final approval of the board is scheduled for February of 2027. So once the board does final approval, then it's a matter of just scheduling out the funding for the projects based on the funding sources. Some funding sources are available right away, some are available later in the 4-year cycle. It's a 4-year cycle for the funding. So anyway, good news though, because 2 of our higher priority projects got funded there, or are proposed to get funded. East Cotati Avenue paving, the maintenance project is wrapped up, and we're getting ready to bid the next paving project, which is the L section. So that's just, again, a maintenance project. It's expected to bid in August, and so the council will be seeing an item on that later this summer for potential award. At the corner of Old Redwood Highway 116, the monument columns have been ordered, and they're 8 to 10 weeks out, so that'll finally get replaced and then installed. So I think we're finally getting down to the end of that. And then we have pending signal pole painting at Old Redwood Highway in Valparaiso, and also Old Redwood Highway at East Cotati Avenue. So those 2 signals are they're those old decorative style signals, and they have some peeling paint and look a bit faded. So we're just waiting on the right weather conditions. These painters typically paint at nighttime, so they need the right weather conditions to start painting. And if they don't, if the weather conditions don't improve for them to paint, it's a very specific set of weather conditions. Then we might just say, go ahead and do it in the daytime just to get it done. It's just, there's less traffic at night, so that's their default typically. On July 11th, we celebrated the 33rd Annual Kids Day, Cotati Kids Day Parade and Festival with a construction theme, Cotati Kids Dig Into Fun, and we had over 1,000 people throughout the day and over 60 vendors, including a public works tractor for kids to sit on, and it was a big hit. And we're already looking forward to next year's event. So we are now in week 8 of our summer camps, and only 1 week left of summer for the camps before they go back to school. Kids go back to school. So Camp Cotati is full for the rest of the summer, but we do have a few openings for next week's Paint It Bright Farm Camp at the ranch. But they've both been pretty close to capacity throughout the summer, so that's good news. And then this Saturday is our Blossom Tea Social and fresh grown flower sales at the Veranda Floody Ranch between 10 a.m. and noon. Stop by to see the flower garden and enjoy some fresh herbal tea. Also this Saturday at the Veranda Floody Ranch is free compost pickup from 10 to noon. And the fall garden seed germination workshop. The workshop, you get to take home your own starts for your own garden. That's what as the name implies, it's a fall seed germination workshop. Anyway, Sunday is also the second day of the free compost weekend. So that's again 10 a.m. to noon. And it's also a volunteer day if anybody wants to volunteer and help out in the garden at the ranch. Next Tuesday, August 4th, is our 10th year of celebrating National Night Out in La Plaza Park. So you can come join the Cotati Police Department, recreation staff, and other city staff for a free dinner in the park starting at 6 p.m. We follow that up with, we have lawn games and other things. And then when the sun goes down, we follow that up with a movie in the park. And it's going to be Zootopia 2 on the big screen, beginning around 8 p.m. And then finally, starting later in August, we'll be offering a free inclusive play group and parent learning circle at the ranch, hosted by Sandy Loam and the Common Ground Society, funded through a grant from First Five Sonoma County and also Measure I, which is the child care grant, as you guys know. So the play group is for children ages 0 to 5 and their parents or caregivers. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any. But
Thank you. Any questions, City Manager? Okay, so we'll go to council member reports. Anyone here have, okay, go ahead.
I have nothing to report.
Okay.
I had the Sonoma County Legislative meeting last Friday on the 17th, and that was the first time we had met in 3 months due to lack of quorum and a holiday that fell on our normal meeting date. So there's some legislative pieces that are moving through Sacramento right now. We have submitted all the letters that we have been asked to, so we're up to date there. I think we had our ribbon cutting at the firehouse since our last council meeting too, didn't we, on July 1st?
Yes.
So I thought that was very well attended. I thought that was a great crowd of people and was a great event. And then just a big thank you to everyone that made Kids Day happen. Just a huge success again, and lots of happy kids and parents, I think. Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
Yeah, I just have one item. Been working on for about a month with the County of Sonoma to put together a brochure for the executive officer for LAFCO, and that is due to be posted on Friday on LAFCO's website and the county website. So if anybody knows of someone who may want to be the executive officer of LAFCO, please check it out. That's all I have to report.
Okay, thank you. And I have some meetings I went to. June 24th, Homeless Coalition meeting. July 1st, the ribbon cutting at the new firehouse. July 2nd, Sonoma Clean Power meeting. July 11th, Cotati Kids Day. Threw out lots of candy. That was a fun event. On July 14th, I went with Sonoma Clean Power to Ukiah to see for a ribbon cutting of a new solar facility and battery storage place that was a ribbon cutting. It's a partnership with Sonoma Clean Power and a resources group, so that was a really good, beautiful location. But they're generating enough power to power like 1,000 homes a year, and it was a great place to go visit. July 16th, I went to this zero waste meeting for Vice Mayor Harvey, And then July 22nd, I went to the Homeless Coalition, where they're trying to navigate some of the federal changes around qualifying and the criteria for NOVOs for a lot of the homeless programs. And they're looking at adding 2 seats, including 1 seat from the Human Services Department to the Homeless Coalition Board. So that's what I have at the meetings that I went to since we've been gone. So next item is information received after the agenda was posted.
Yes, there were, I believe, a total of 9 public comment letters received regarding item 7B. All of those were posted to the HTML agenda under information received after the agenda was posted and are available here in print in the chamber tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And with that, at 7:51, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.